Welcome, Bronco Nation, to my review for Boise State versus New Mexico. Boise State winning this one 31-14. Just real quick off the bat here, as you can tell, my surroundings a little bit different. I am on the road this week visiting family, getting a chance to visit them before the craziness of the season and everything else starts kicking off. So this is going to be a little bit of a different, a little more informal setting for today. You might hear some dogs barking in the background. I've got 8 siblings, so you might hear them making noise in the background too. But today we're going to be looking at Boise State versus New Mexico. A big win here for Boise State on the road to open up Mountain West play here. Maybe answering some questions for Boise State fans in some departments, maybe leaving some questions open in others. We'll talk about all that. We're going to review, go through the offense, the defense, and the special teams, assign a grade to each of those performances in tonight's win. And we're also going to look at my 3 keys to the game from my last video, the previewing this game, and see how Boise State did matching up in each of those. And this video, as always, all my reviews this season are going to be under 30 minutes, so let's get off the ground here. So starting off with the offense, obviously a 31-point victory is better than last week's performance against Oregon State. Only 1 turnover in this one, 1 interception thrown by Hank Bachmeier there. Overthrow didn't end up impacting the game because, of course, the defense was playing solid. However, this was still not a solid performance by the offense overall. 318 total yards, that's it. 170 yards through the air, 148 yards on the ground. But Hank Bachmeier, better in this one, but not by much. I mean, and this was against a New Mexico defense, a New Mexico defense which is terrible. So take all that with a grain of salt when we look at these numbers, and they're still not very good. 20 out of 27, 16 completions out of 27 attempts, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. This is against New Mexico. Those numbers should be double that. The completion percentage is terrible there. This was a Hank Bachmeier that came in and he looked better in this one, but he still didn't look confident. He still didn't look like he was completing balls accurately. The first deep pass that he had completed was really more on the wide receiver than it was on him. It's a little bit behind, a little underthrown. The wide receiver was able to go up and make it. A great first ever catch, actually, by the sophomore there. Actually, I'm going to have to look up his name here because I hadn't ever seen him be involved before. Cole Wright. So a great 47-yard grab there by Cole Wright. Hank Bachmeier did have some nice throws, in this game, but it still wasn't the quarterback that you look at and go, this guy can go win us a Mountain West championship game. The running game itself, 148 yards. Obviously, a step forward plus 100 yards, but it was still a running game that didn't look efficient, and part of that was the play calling. Up the middle. When Boise State ran outside, guess what? They had success. When they ran it up the middle, which they did for a large chunk of the night, they found almost nothing. I stopped counting at one point, but I'd already counted out at least 12 times that they'd run it just straight up the middle. They did at least on 3 straight drives straight up the middle. So the running game is still a big question mark for this team. Now, another question mark is now going to be the offensive line, because in addition to poor offensive line play last week and a questionable offensive line play this week, you had 2 offensive linemen out of this game. Boise State not revealing the reasons of that. I talked to some contacts, and they're still not revealing the reasons for Boise State offensive linemen not being present in this matchup. Also, J.L. Skinner not present. We'll talk about that later when we get to the defensive section. But Ben Dooley, Mason Randolph not present in this one. So their backups having to come in here and step up. Played pretty much, I think it was a similar look. Of course, it's going up against a New Mexico defense again, so that's going to taper a little bit how you expect their offensive line to perform. They should have crushed this defensive line. They should have been dominant. They didn't look dominant. They looked passable in some moments. There was definitely more time for Hank Bachmeier. Not that many sacks. I should have written down the sacks number. That's on me. He had time to throw the ball for the most part. But the main thing was offensive line was not getting push up front for the run game. Definitely not in the middle. Definitely not in the trenches. So it was a questionable play overall by the offense, who only again put up 318 yards. There were some nice plays. There were some really nice plays. And this is the issue that I have with Tim Plow. I have been somewhat of a Plow defender here really all of last season, because I see nice plays. You see nice plays like we saw tonight, where you saw the Halani screen play, which was great. Misdirection to the right side. They get all the wide receivers flowing to the right side. You think the ball's going that way, and then Halani squirts out of the backfield to the left side of the field, throws a touchdown. Touchdown Halani. Or you have the really nice play up at the goal line where you have Capels come around, misdirection. You think the back's got it going to the left. Capels gets it on a quick pitch. He runs in for a touchdown. So you see nice plays. Tim Plow definitely has the ability to draw up quality plays for this offense. What you don't see is consistent play calling from beginning to end. Boise State found success today because it was a New Mexico defense. What Boise State was doing today, running up the middle and throwing it deep, would not work against San Diego State, would not work against Fresno State. It would not work against teams that are able to cover you and play man-to-man all the way back, and it would not work against teams that are able to keep Boise State just ran New Mexico down. At the half, it was only 10-0. Boise State ended up winning someone 31-14 because they have a deeper team, and New Mexico is New Mexico. So Boise State in the end there was able to run pretty much all over them. Even then, they weren't able to run all over them, but they were able to find success in the offense in the second half by just running down New Mexico and tiring them out. But it wasn't because of complex route trees. It wasn't because of innovative play design, and it definitely wasn't because of good play calling in the run game. So these are issues that Boise State's got to address, because when you start playing quality defenses, running up the middle and throwing it deep, or this was pretty much the entire passing play package today. These little bubble screens that we threw multiple bubble screens to different players, and none of them really worked very well. Little bubble screen, deep pass. Couple of slants in there, which worked great. More slants. Caples, touchdown, first touchdown there by Bachmeyer, pass to Caples on a slant, runs it in for a touchdown. Fantastic play call. We need more of that. Middle of the field stuff. Outside passes. Short passing game, mid-range passing game versus screen pass on 3rd and long, which we saw over and over again. There was at least 5 times that Boise State intentionally threw the ball short of the line to gain on 3rd down, and of course didn't make it either because the wide receiver dropped the ball or because the defense covered it. So short, you can't. I'm not saying don't go with the screen game. I'm not saying don't do the deep ball, but you've got to find other ways to move the offense other than just those two, because a good defense is going to shut you down. And even against New Mexico, they were able to cover most of that pretty well, as you can see by only 170 yards passing, considering that a lot of those passing plays came on like 2 passes. So a lot of those yards came on like 2 passes. So definitely not enough to give Boise State fans confidence. That is still going to have to be built here. I want to say one more thing about the deep ball. Last week, when we were just going deep ball over and over again with Taylor Green, I thought we were doing that because the spot that Boise State was in the game, Taylor Green comes in late. He's a brand new quarterback, pretty much making his first real start presence of playing time in a game against a quality opponent like Oregon State. You give him a simple playbook, throw the ball deep, and you want to come back. You're in a hole, you got to come back. So I thought that's why we're going to the deep ball. Well, apparently not. Apparently that's pretty much all we got in our arsenal is deep go routes and short wheel routes and nothing else. But at the same time, at the other end of the spectrum, you've got these amazing plays by Tim Plow. So something has to happen in between. He's got to bring in some help. He's got Dirk Cutter right there on the sideline there as someone who he can lean on, who he can bring in, who can help him develop his playbook. So it's something a little bit more complex, which isn't hard, than what we've been running right now. Something to flesh out the offense in between. And then Tim Plow, who's got a good brain. He's proven that with his knowledge of the sport. He can come out here and he can design up these design plays that look great and flash and do great. But you can't rely on simple playbook and then one easy, great play at the end of it, because you're never going to get to that play at the end of it against good defensive teams. So this is an offense overall. What I'm going to be rating this one overall is C+. I think it was definitely an improved effort, but it was against New Mexico. Boise State has 2 more games against, lower tier teams, to say the least. You got UTEP and you've got UT Martin. Boise State's got to figure some things out here on offense before it moves on to the big dogs, starting off with San Diego State here in 3 weeks here at the end of the month. All right, so C+ for the offense. Moving on to the defense. Solid A by this defense. I'll say that right off the bat here. Solid A by the defense. 121 yards allowed, 98 passing yards, 23 rushing yards against a New Mexico team that's kind of their bread and butter is that running game. Obviously, they're not running the option anymore, but it's still a bread and butter running game here. And Boise State held them to 23 yards. That defensive line looked solid. Now, I will say, the reason this is not an A+ is because Boise State still looked porous against the passing game. They allowed a long touchdown pass. There was a couple other plays there, especially against Canijo, who was targeted a bunch. New Mexico was going after Canijo. They knew he was a weak spot. But also, when Boise State subbed in Jalen Clark, he also was the one who gave up the long, deep touchdown pass. But there was a couple other opportunities there where a good quarterback, it's New Mexico, so obviously they don't have best quarterback in the land here, a good quarterback and good wide receiver combo would have taken Boise State for a loop, like we saw against Oregon State. So there was a lot, 98 yards, they probably should have been a lot more, is my point. So that's why it's not going to be an A+. I'm going to give an A because Boise State did a great job getting pressure. A great job. George, first play of the game, the Greek freak from Weber State, Tarlis comes in with a sack. It was amazing. That set the tone for the whole game. So that was fantastic. So I'm going to give Boise State a solid A here because their defensive line was great. They got to the quarterback multiple times. I didn't write down the sack numbers because ESPN's really late getting these out, and it's already plus 11 p.m. I just want to get this video out here. But there was a bunch of sacks. So 0 sacks last game, bunch of sacks this game. The one thing you didn't see this game was turnovers. Boise State did block a punt, which we'll talk about when we get to the special teams. That kind of counts there as a turnover, but no forced turnovers by the defense, no interceptions, no forced fumbles. So that was one thing that could have been seen as a negative, but honestly, I would rather see shutdown defense, less than 150 yards overall offense, than a bunch of turnovers and a yardage in between. So I liked what I saw out of the Boise State defense. I just wanted to see them be more consistent against the pass. It's definitely been something that's been exposed by Boise State here is their corners. We thought this was going to be a really deep group. I think it is a deep group. I just don't think they're being used appropriately. We haven't really seen Tyreek LaBeouf. He had made a nice play today in the defensive secondary. We need to see Tyreek LaBeouf more. I think he's someone who can step up. A bunch of interceptions last year. Of course, started off strong against UCF. So I think he is a playmaker who should be used more. But Boise State has got some questions to answer there. Just like they've got questions to answer on the offense, they've got some questions to answer there in the secondary, specifically at the cornerback position. But as far as this line, this is, again, like when I talked about with Carl Kiever, when I previewed the defensive line for Boise State, or the front seven for Boise State, we were saying that this was one of the best defensive front sevens we've seen really in Boise State history. It has the potential to be that. And I think we're definitely seeing that this season. The linebackers are stepping up. That was a big question mark for Boise State. The guys that are stepping up to replace the talent lost there have done a great job. And the defensive line itself is doing a fantastic job here for Boise State. So not at all disappointed by the defensive line performance. I think we could have seen some better things in the secondary, maybe impacted by the loss there of Skinner. Really hoping, again, that is a massive question mark. Skinner is the heart and soul of this defense. He cannot be out. We need him back. I'm unsure why he wasn't here. Maybe it's something that Andy Avalos is answering as I speak in the press conference. Let's hope that this is getting cleared out and answered right now. He'll be back to play coming forward. Again, not necessarily as important in the next couple of games. And if it's something like it's a question and you want to make sure that he's tweaked something, this is the time to keep him out. We need him in the back half of the season. But Jail Skinner, Alex Tubner, I think, did an okay job there filling in for him, but Jail Skinner is irreplaceable for this defense. He needs to come back. But overall, defensive line played great. Secondary didn't have much of a challenge to go up against, and they played okay against what they saw. So solid A effort here by the defense. All right, special teams, and then we'll move into 3 keys to the game, and we'll get this out way under 30 minutes. I'm very excited. I'm very happy to be on pace. Again, if anybody watched my videos last year, I was about an hour and a half on these, so I've gotten much better at coming through, hitting the wave top. So a little pat on the back there. We're doing great. All right, moving on to the special teams here. Special teams, a little bit of mixed bag. A little bit like last week. Well, I wouldn't say last week was a mixed bag. I'd say last week was terrible. This week, definite improvement in the key positions. Dalmez makes his 1 field goal attempt longer than any of the missed field goals he had last week. 1 out of 1, 48 yards, perfect, nails it. Good job, move on. Great kick by Dalmez. So definitely a little bit of a confidence booster after maybe being a little shaken up there confidence-wise against Oregon State. Chance to come in here, make the lone kick that he got. Glad that he got that attempt. Now he can move on with the season, and I think he's going to continue to be the stellar kicker that we saw last year for Boise State. Ferguson, not a great outing last week. Last week, it was under 40 yards per kick average that he had there. I wrote it down, 32.4. Or 37. Sorry, 37. 32.4 would have been really bad. But he had 37.4 average on his kicks against Oregon State. Definite improvement this week. I still didn't like how long he's holding on to the ball. I still thought that that there were some opportunities to get a little bit further than he did. But 9 kicks, 45.7. So he's plus 40, plus 45, 3 inside the 20. So definite improvement by Ferguson. Of course, last game, his first ever game here playing at the collegiate level. So very, very different experience for him coming in here and playing against Oregon State. He's got a good block, a good kick coverage team. So this was definitely a learning moment for him against Oregon State. He definitely improved coming into this game. Ferguson improving. Hopefully he continues to improve. I think that he has potential, especially if he can stop kicking it to the return man. If he can start getting it past the return man, you got those Aussie kicks, they trickle, he can start having some 60-plus yarders if he can start getting it to bounce. Now let's talk about bouncing kicks. because that was a major issue today. And part of the reason that this grade for the special teams is going to be a little low, because Cobbs, again, was not consistent here on kick return. He didn't have very many good kick returns. They were against New Mexico, who had some pretty good coverage. But which also wasn't blocked well. We can blame a little bit of that, I think, on the blocking team here for Boise State. But he also let a bunch go without trying to catch them, and added 15, 20 yards to a bunch of the New Mexico kicks. I mean, it was really frustrating to see him letting kicks drop right in front of him on a couple of times, right in front of him, and trickle back. Yeah, they come up shorter than he was expecting, but that's part of being a punt returner. That's part of your job, is to have that awareness to come up to catches to keep them from going back. Questionable catches on a couple of the ones he did have, catching it like this. You never want to catch a kick return like you would a pass, because that ball is doing this. You try to catch it like this, at some point it's going to bounce off your hands, and that is going to be a fumble. Or a muffed punt return. So again, Cobbs, he's not been consistent on the punt return. Of course, that was Khalil Shakir's job last year. So he's stepping into a role that he didn't have last season. He's having to fill a vacancy that is very hard shoes to fill. I mean, Khalil Shakir, and who replaced Avery Williams previously, very, very hard to come up against two back-to-back amazing punt returners. A lot of pressure on you to come in and fill that. But Boise State could help him out a little bit here by either doing a little bit of a better job in their punt return coverage, or coming in and trying to block these a little bit more. Yeah, Boise State did have a blocked punt in this, but they only really went after 2 punts in this one. They only really went after 2 punts in this game, almost got one of them, and got the second one. But for the most part, especially when they weren't backed up in the end zone, and even they had a third one in the end zone that they really didn't come after completely, Boise State was pretty much just running up. 3 guys would run up and just stand there. They were playing punt coverage. That's what they were playing, a coverage role, which is fine. If you're going to play coverage, that's great, but you've got to be able to actually block. If you're playing return, sorry, not coverage, that's my bad, on my mistake. They're playing punt return. If you're playing punt return, you've got to be able to return. And the Lobos defenders were pretty much right there in Cobb's face before he could even get moving. So they're not getting to the ball and flustering the punter, giving him his time to line up his punt and get it off exactly as he wants it to. And they're also not blocking well in the punt return. So you got to do one or the other. And I always think that unless you are in a game type of situation where you think the return is going to help you get it better, I always think that going for that block is better, because it pressures the punter. Off chance you go and you actually block that, and Boise State blocked a bunch last season, so they definitely have the guys who can go out and do it. I just think it's better for the unit overall to go and block those. But you got to do one or the other. You got to do one or the other well, and I think you got a better chance of being a great blocking team than you do of being a great return team, especially the way that return team is working out so well right now. The second factor here is on the coverage team for the kick return. Boise State had 3 kick returns, and they were covering. They kicked off in New Mexico, and all 3 of them didn't look very good. The first kickoff of the game, he didn't get very far. I think he got to like the 20 or the 25, but he broke a tackle in getting to that. So it took 2 guys to take him down. Second one, he was able to run up right at the middle, get up to near the 40, and he broke a bunch of tackles on that. And the third one, he was able to return for a touchdown. So that was a really troubling part here for the special teams, is not being able to cover the kick return appropriately, to be able to go out there and defend the kick return appropriately. So that was a big mistake. So big mistakes here on the punt return or punt blocking units, and a big mistakes on the coverage teams for the kick return. So overall, Dalmez and Ferguson are going to give this unit a higher grade than they probably deserve. They're going to get a B- on this. But the unit as a whole, when you get outside the 2 guys and you start talking about the special teams unit as a whole, the guys out there doing the punts and covering the kicks and getting the punts off and getting the kicks off, those guys, the unit as a whole, the team as a whole, has some work to do. They definitely do. And this was against New Mexico. You start coming up against some teams that are really good in the return game, it's going to hurt Boise State a little bit more than it did tonight. All right. Offense, defense, special teams reviewed. Real quick here, keys to the game, and we will be done here. Number 1 was find your starter. I'm going to give this an A question mark. I still don't think that Bachmeier has played enough, had a good enough game to show that he can go out there and win you a Mountain West championship game, or can go out there and show you can have a successful season. But I think that Plow demonstrated, he found his starter by demonstrating that he's sticking with Bachmeyer. Taylor Green came in for like one play. It was a run play. They faked. They probably should have kept it, honestly. He might have had a touchdown, but handed off, run play, and that was pretty much it that we saw out of Green. So Tim Plow has found his starter. Bachmeyer played better. Team played a little bit better around him, and he definitely played better. So he's definitely showing that he's found the guy that he wants to be a starter. I don't think there was a lot of questions. Said that there was a quarterback competition. I doubt that quarterback competition was all that fierce. Probably just wanted Bachmeyer to show a little bit of an improvement, and he showed that little bit of improvement, so I think that they're stuck. They're not stuck. Bachmeyer's a good quarterback. Bachmeyer is an experienced quarterback. Bachmeyer has shown he has the capability to be a good quarterback. His freshman season was great. Last season, I thought he played really well overall. I mean, he had some bad moments, but I thought he played really well overall. This season, he's not shown that he can be a great quarterback yet. He has that capability in him. He's experienced. If he can get the right coaching, I think he can be a great quarterback. But we'll have to see how it works out the rest of the season. Got a couple of easy games here that he can work out some rust, and there's a lot of rust to knock off. Hopefully he can do it and be a great quarterback in the second half. But either way, I'm going to give this an A question mark because the goal was find your starter, find your guy who you're going to stick with, and Tim Plow obviously set his marks on Hank Bachmeyer. All right, second was compartmentalize. I'm giving this an A+. I was saying don't let the mistakes of the offense or the falterings of the offense impact the defense, special teams altogether. Offense, very slow start in this one. Only one touchdown in the first half before they were able to get going in the second half. Defense didn't let it hurt them. Defense came out and played solid the entire game, even when their offense was faltering. Special teams came out. Dalmas made his one kick of the game. The mistakes didn't compound. They didn't spiral out of control. The team didn't start to feel down. They hung in there. The defense played great and kept Boise State pushing through. So I'm going to give this one an A+. Third key, coaches if your career was on the line. And this was specifically focused to Tim Plow. C-. We did not, it wasn't an F. We saw some creativity out of Tim Plow, and obviously the offense did better in this one. But we also didn't see, I don't think we saw Tim Plow coaching with everything he's got in this one. And he wasn't, if he was throwing everything he's got at New Mexico, that playbook has got to be tiny because there was not a lot that we saw in this game against New Mexico. We saw a couple of wide receiver sweeps that were in the second half. I think maybe he picked it up a little bit more in the second half. We saw a little bit more. I'm actually not going to say that. I would say we saw a little bit more of a complex route tree, but I really don't think we did. I think that was the biggest issue. The route tree was not complex enough. There's one point, the interception that Hank Bachmeyer threw, that was a called play. That was the only wide receiver that he could throw to on that play. You have your entire 11 guys out on offense, 2 wide receivers running routes. He didn't even have a screen pass to the running back. 2 wide receivers running routes on either side. 1 wide receiver runs a little bit of a dig, kind of like basically like a 15-yard hook, and stops. And he wasn't even running full speed. Stops. Other player runs down the field. I believe it was a go. I'd have to go back and watch the exact tape. But anyhow, the guy that Hank Bachmeyer threw to, I believe it was a go, deep down the field. That is the only, you had 2 players you could throw to. One of them double covered and wasn't running that fast and pretty much just stopped moving. The other guy was the only one to throw to. 2 wide receivers. That's it. 2 options to throw to. And one of them you weren't going to throw to. So that was a design call where that is the only guy Hank Bachmeyer is throwing to. That is a design play. So he didn't really have a choice on that. I mean, that's throw that or take a sack or throw it away. You could throw it away. And then you'd hope an experienced quarterback would look at it and go, no, that's not open. Throw it away. But that's the kind of play calling I'm talking about. Simple route trees where you don't have a lot of options for Hank Bachmeyer. You've got a senior quarterback out there, 4-year quarterback. He should be able to have an abundant set of options to look to, scan the field, go back, first, second, third look, come back to his first look, go. I mean, he should be able to do that. And you're not seeing that with Boise State. You're seeing a couple of guys, and that's it. And I don't think that's on Hank Bachmeyer. I think he's smart enough. I think that's on Tim Plow. I don't think they're saying we have to dumb this down for Bachmeyer. I really don't. I think this is Tim Plow saying, I just don't know how to call it more complex than that. And I have been a little bit of a Tim Plow supporter. I wouldn't say supporter, defender. I have said that you shouldn't judge a coach until you've seen him in his 3rd year, especially when he's taking over basically a whole new system. But this is really getting to the point where it's indefensible. And I'm not going to jump on the Tim Plow hate wagon. I'm not. I think a lot of things that fans say are excessive. But I am going to jump on the let's question some things here, because what we're seeing right now is not an offensive coordinator who is calling a game with ingenuity. We're not seeing complex play calling right now. It's a very simple playbook that is easy to defend, and it is hurting Boise State right now. So as far as coaches, as far as your career was on the line, I'm gonna give that a C-. Saw some nice plays. We already mentioned them, but beginning to end, everything in the middle was not very impressive tonight for Tim Plow. So find your starter, A, maybe, question mark, compartmentalize A+, coaches of your careers on the line, and that's one's going to be a C-. So overall, Boise State gets a win. Next week, get to go play UTEP. Next week is the home opener against UT Martin. So, and that's a game that I'm going to be in attendance for. So I'm super excited. Home opener, Boise State. I'm going to be flying up to UT Martin, to Boise State for the UT Martin game. I'm super excited for that match. It's been a long time since I was able to make it home because of all the COVID and everything else. So I'm really excited to be able to go watch this Boise State game. Hopefully, it's an FCS team, so Boise State should crush them. That's what I'm hoping for. And hopefully we'll get to see maybe some other things open up on this offense, because right now, there's some highlights. Ashton Genty is running hard. I love what I see out of him. But you got a lot of question marks throughout this offense. You got a lot of wide receivers that you still don't know who your main guy is. You're not seeing the tight ends emphasized like they should. Tyler Hopper has yet to be targeted, which is crazy. One of the best tight end for the Boise State probably has on this roster, and he's not getting the field at all on plays designed to actually get the ball thrown to him. Defense is stepping on being solid, but they got some questions to answer here in the secondary. And the special teams unit as a whole, outside of the kicker and the punter, you start talking about the return units, they have a lot of question marks as well. So hopefully, UT Martin, chance to start answering some of those, start figuring some things out, because you only have a couple more, I'll call them practice games. You don't have practice games. Every game counts. But you only got a couple more lower level teams before the big one hits you there in San Diego State. And if you're not ready, it's going to hit you hard. So let's go out. Let's beat UT Martin. I'm excited. I'll see you all at the game, hopefully. Catch me at the tailgate. I'll be out there. So make sure you keep an eye out for my 3 keys to the game. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, go Big Blue!